In an exclusive interview with Reuters on July 18, 2025, former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, wearing an electronic monitoring bracelet imposed hours earlier by the Supreme Court, defied judicial constraints by presenting himself as the man capable of countering Chinese influence, renegotiating U.S. tariffs, and curbing the Brazilian left embodied by President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Despite a ban on contacting foreign officials and using social media, Bolsonaro remains determined to play a central role on the global political stage as his country faces a major diplomatic crisis with the United States. This provocative statement comes in the context of U.S. President Donald Trump imposing 50% tariffs on Brazilian exports, a punitive measure linked to the judicial persecution of Bolsonaro for an alleged coup attempt in 2022. Hi, it's Carlos. I hope you're doing well. These are the key developments dominating today's news. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to explore economic and political news in just a few minutes a day. Why does Bolsonaro, under investigation for undermining democracy, persist in positioning himself as an indispensable figure? How can a former president, stripped of his passport and under judicial surveillance, claim to influence economic relations between Brazil, the United States, and China? To understand, let's dive into the heart of this crisis. On July 9, 2025, Donald Trump announced 50% tariffs on Brazilian imports, a decision he justified as a response to the witch hunt against his ideological ally, Jair Bolsonaro. In a letter to Lula, Trump denounced Brazil's attacks on fundamental American free speech rights and an alleged trade deficit, despite 2024 figures showing a U.S. trade surplus of $7.4 billion with Brazil. This escalation marks a turning point in relations between the two largest powers in the Americas, an unprecedented diplomatic conflict in over a decade. Bolsonaro, in his Reuters interview, did not mince words. Seated beside a copy of the Brazilian Constitution and a magazine featuring Trump on the cover, he denounced Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes, whom he called a dictator, and described the judicial restrictions as acts of cowardice. He accused China of taking control of Brazil and criticized the BRICS bloc, which he described as a fraternity of dictators and war criminals. These statements echo a nationalist and anti-Chinese rhetoric, but they raise a question: is Bolsonaro genuinely seeking to protect Brazilian interests, or is this a strategy to rally his electoral base ahead of the 2026 elections, despite his ineligibility until 2030? Lula, for his part, is not yielding to pressure. During the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro in July 2025, he compared Trump to an unwelcome emperor, a remark that heightened tensions with Washington. In response to the U.S. tariffs, Lula promised retaliatory measures, invoking a Brazilian law allowing proportional economic countermeasures. According to the New York Times, this confrontation has paradoxically boosted Lula's popularity, which had been eroding before Trump's intervention. By positioning himself as a defender of national sovereignty, Lula has even rallied conservatives, such as São Paulo Governor Tarcísio de Freitas, who attempted to negotiate with the U.S. Embassy while criticizing Lula's handling of the situation. International reactions were swift. China, Brazil's main trading partner, denounced the U.S. tariffs as an attempt at coercion, according to a statement by Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning. The Kremlin, meanwhile, reaffirmed that BRICS cooperation is not directed against third countries, but the economic stakes are enormous. Brazil, the world's leading coffee exporter and a key player in agribusiness, risks driving up food prices in the United States, where 1/3 of consumed coffee comes from its lands. As analyzed by the Washington Post, Brazil, with a relatively closed economy and China as its primary trading partner, could withstand U.S. pressure, but at the cost of increased inflation and disruptions in the agriculture and aeronautics sectors. Bolsonaro's allies fear that Trump's intervention may backfire. According to Reuters, some of the former president's close associates believe the tariffs tie his image to a potential economic crisis, thereby strengthening Lula among moderate voters. The excitement of gaining Trump's attention quickly turned to concern, an anonymous source told The Guardian. This dynamic echoes recent setbacks for Trump's allies in Australia and Canada, where opposition to his policies has galvanized center-left parties. What does this crisis reveal about the state of global politics? It highlights the dangers of confrontational diplomacy, where tariffs become political weapons. Trump is leveraging his economic power to support an ally, but risks isolating the United States against a BRICS bloc representing 40% of the global economy. For Brazil, this ordeal tests the resilience of its democratic institutions against internal and external pressures. Bolsonaro, despite his judicial constraints, remains a polarizing figure capable of mobilizing a loyal base, but his association with Trump could prove electorally toxic. In conclusion, this saga illustrates a world where national power struggles intertwine with geopolitical rivalries. Lula, by positioning himself as a bulwark against foreign interference, may turn this crisis into a political opportunity. Bolsonaro, meanwhile, is playing a risky card, betting on U.S. support to challenge a judicial system he accuses of persecution. But one question remains: how far can this escalation go before the economic consequences weigh too heavily on both nations? Brazil, caught between nationalism and pragmatism, must navigate this storm with caution. To explore these issues and other news, subscribe and stay connected.